We are Team SGUB. We are responsible for creating a trauma intervention app, an app by Arcos, where the user will assist the user in trauma care in rural areas, and preferably in a pre-hospital setting. So to begin, here's our project backlog. For the first iteration, we focused mainly on learning the tools and technologies for our project, React and Redux. But in the second iteration, we'll focus more on learning state management with Redux. And so here's the status, story, task, expected feature, comments, and hours for our project backlog. As you can see here, we created a user story, and then from there we created a task to do, and then the expected feature, and then the comment is on whoever wanted to take up that task and the expected number of hours for that task. So in our project, we decided to split it off between whoever will create that specific function and whoever will test that function. So pretty much we were in pairs of two for jest and enzyme.
Okay, so in Jest, we set up the Jest and enzyme on the Jenkins server, so we can test the code with the two pairs of the team. So each one working on different part of the component. So we update on the SVN, and then we try to keep the coverage up. And then we do the enzyme test for the beta test instead of the snapshot testing, because snapshot testing only cover partially, not like really functional. But we're trying to keep the coverage up. So now we are in progress in this three because there's still some testing needs to be covered. We are trying to learn in the enzyme because it's relatively new technology for Airbnb. So some documentation doesn't include everything. We have to pretty much on our own pace to kind of fit the code to the components. So here I will show the demo we have right now.
So for our first iteration, we spent most of our time creating designs and prototyping the first page. And Varner is trying to pull it right now. He has it on his phone.
Let me connect on my phone. It's installed on my phone. So we can have this demo.
So here's the first page of our app.
So, okay. So there's how we use this, because we have to have a professional medical personnel to help when somebody is injured. So we will have, for example, let me demo this.
These are some of the
There's
options.
a person called Tom. He maybe got shot. Yeah, it could be actually. Because he will lose blood. We have to estimate how many blood. And we have like 140 maybe estimate. And then the person maybe have estimated blood like, oh, not 50, but yeah, 50 actually we have to do the check. So we will see, okay, 0 to 5 is the correct liters for the
average human body
person.
doesn't hold
Because we
more
asked
than 1 to 5 liters.
We asked the company how the guidelines should be. They have to it have to be 0 to 5 liters. So let me change back to 5. So now there's no warning.
Your body holds 1 to 5 liters.
Basically, pen level is also another guideline. So we have to type. It's really pen like 100, but actually it's not. Actually, it's 1 to 10. So 10 is basically if you type like 100, you also from 0 to 10. So you have to type in the correct range in order to make it work. And currently we have this set up front end, and the link of the back side is still on progress for the next planning iteration. So it will be the Redux state management. Yeah, it will be this one. The second iteration will have Redux implemented, and then second page we will set up the second page for the input as well. But for currently, we still need to ask our sponsor for more information, because this basically we entirely design this, so they don't have really clear guideline where should we go for. So we need to ask more about like how many flowchart of those, like 1 to 10 range we need to have. So we need to think about that as well. And as to our code coverage, now currently it's about 88% overall, because some React Native component library doesn't have really good documentation with the test, so we're trying our best to bring out the coverage. You can see there's only few lines of code didn't get covered, so mostly they're covered. Oh, yeah. So the part of the code coverage is because of this one. It's because of the animation bounce off. This part doesn't really get covered. So maybe we can have the suggestion for how we can test the animation part well. And you mentioned the interaction testing on the email I sent. So maybe there's a better solution with this. We'll try to figure out that. Yeah, so that's why the part didn't get covered. And another part didn't get covered is actually the bottom part. You see the tab, that's the second. We will implement this later on. And the third part, flowchart, we need to ask the company how the flowchart should be. The tab also need to get more coverage as well. So we are thinking about that, how well we can test that as well. So pretty much this is the demo we have in this first iteration right now. And this is our Jenkins server, so currently built until the 127 now. And there's some question for the project we encounter. Basically, we have encountered the link problem because NPM sometimes have to link the dependency. Yeah, so that's pretty much for the current. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is a plain app. So our app will involve a lot of, as you can see, input test. So we create a very abstract and extensible input test, and we have animation there. So we can probably do many things with the input test. So in the next iteration, we push things a bit faster because in the next iteration, the second page monitoring page, we just have title and input test, and the user type in the data. So it's basically more like copy and paste. And then the problem we will face in the next iteration, probably integrate Redux in our app. Because when we integrate Redux our app, basically we need to refactor 100% of our code. And the other thing is the problem about testing the UI. So as you can see, React Native doesn't have built-in animation for validation with input test. So we dive into React Native animation and try to make our own custom animation for React Native. However, it's quite a bit complicated, and it's an animation, just a feedback for the user. It feels good and it's good user experience. So our solution is use a third-party package which already had the animation set up ready. But the problem with that is that we cannot test that animation. So can you do the animation about it?
Okay. So for example, like that.
So whenever you type a wrong number, because you cannot lose more than 5 liters, because normal people only have 5 liters of blood in your body. So you have the 10, you have the bouncing animation and the validation test. So with the bouncing animation, we stop there. We cannot test the bouncing animation. And other problem is that, can you type in the injury type? Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then, yeah, make it resize. So injury type can be a description of the injury. So there could be many line and long line tests, something like that. So we want to make the UI look better. So we call ourselves a auto resize text input. But the problem is that even though we use the native event to get the content high of the input test, but the test case in the Zest doesn't know what is that event to actually test. So whenever Zest call that event, it output an error because it cannot find that variable. So to get bypass that, we need to modify our function to actually move the event part only, move to other function. So we can just skip the whole function. So we have to skip that part because we cannot test that because that always show error whenever we try to test the automatically resize test box. So that is the two major problems we're facing so far, other than setup environment. And setup environment is kind of tricky too.
Okay, so that's pretty much for now.
And
This first iteration then. Thank you.
wait. And this is a big issue. This is a big issue BidCat had with us last presentation. He asked us about the audits and whether or not what information we're collecting would violate HIPAA. We asked our sponsor about that, and pretty much they told us not to worry about that because we won't be collecting any kind of sensitive personal information. The most sensitive thing we'll be collecting is a nickname, and our sponsor told us that people won't be collecting, if they want to type in the real name of the patient, there's nothing stopping them, but we're only putting a nickname in. And also things like taking the date and time when a person would be treated is also like sensitive to HIPAA. So the most we could take is some very vague piece of information like the day, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or something like that. We still have more questions about what other information to take and what we could violate because we're very concerned about the legality of the app as well. And if you have any other questions and any more feedback to give to us, we would appreciate it because we don't want to get arrested. And